It's 6 p.m. in Dakar and Freetown. Good evening and welcome to Newslink in West Africa, the Democracy Radio. Broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. Here are the top stories. ECOWAS calls for restraint and peaceful resolution of the border disputes between Mano River Basin. One soldier dies and 6 others injured during a clash between Senegalese army and MFDC rebels. IOM reveals over 3.7 million Nigerians displaced by conflict and climate disasters. And Liberian government vows a comprehensive national plan to address unemployment, especially among youth.
We will determine if the job is supposed to be done by a foreigner or Liberian.
Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is Sankulu Jibril Janko.
Many thanks for joining us. The Economic Committee of West African States, ECOWAS, has expressed concern over rising tensions along the borders of Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. In a statement on Thursday, the regional bloc announced it is sending a technical assessment mission to disputed Yanga border area between Guinea and Sierra Leone. ECOWAS says new tension along the Lofa border between Guinea and Liberia are also complicating the situation in Mano River Basin. The Commission has therefore expanded the mission's mandate to include diplomatic engagement across all areas of potential conflict. ECOWAS is urging the countries involved in exercise restraint to de-escalate tensions, respect international borders, and use diplomatic channels to resolve the dispute peacefully. In Mali, authorities have launched a national assessment of risk linked to money laundering and terrorist financing. The exercise aims to identify the sectors most exposed to illicit financial flows and help the country prepare for a regional mutual evaluation scheduled for 2027. More details with Augustine Colley.
This national risk assessment will begin on March 20. It focuses on the risks associated with money laundering, terrorist financing, and the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. This exercise aims to identify the main threats and vulnerabilities of the financial and economic system in the face of illicit financing channels. The expected findings should then serve as a basis for legislative, regulatory, and operational reforms to strengthen the national prevention and enforcement framework. Several institutions will be involved in this process: public authorities, investigative services, supervisory bodies, and also stakeholders in the financial sector. This national risk assessment is part of the mutual evaluation planned for 2027 within the framework of the Intergovernmental Action Group Against Money Laundering in West Africa, GIABA. It aims to verify countries' compliance with international standards for combating money laundering and terrorist financing. In this type of exercise, several sectors are reviewed: the banking system, real estate, commercial activities with high cash flow, as well as certain legal and accounting professions. For the Malian authorities, this exercise should strengthen the credibility of the country's financial system and improve international cooperation in the fight against money laundering.
Augustine Colley reporting there. Meanwhile, ECOWAS has begun steps to operationalize its Economic, Social and Cultural Council known as ECOSOC as part of efforts to strengthen citizen participation and deepen regional integration. The council, will serve as a platform for dialogue between ECOWAS institutions and non-state actors, including civil society groups, the private sector, traditional leaders, academics and community representatives. From Accra, Nadi Ditete reports.
ECOWAS Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security, Dr. Abdel Fattah Musa, says operationalizing the Economic, Social and Cultural Council, ECOSOC, will help ensure that regional integration efforts are anchored in the participation and ownership of the people of West Africa. Dr. Musa noted that although ECOSOC was provided for under the 1993 reviewed ECOWAS Treaty, it has remained non-operational despite its importance to the bloc's institutional framework. He explained that the Council will create a platform for engagement between ECOWAS institutions and non-state actors, including civil society, the private sector, academia, and traditional authorities. He made the remarks at the opening of a two-day validation meeting of experts and ministers in Accra.
ECOWAS will hold a special summit in May that will adopt a compact on the future of regional integration. to have a platform for civil society so that when this compact is adopted, because it is going to be an agreement between our member states and our citizens about where regional integration should go from here. How do we fight terrorism? How do we fight violent extremism? How do we add value to our products instead of selling raw materials all the time? What are we going to do in order to add value to our economy? This is what the compact is going to talk about.
Meanwhile, Mrs. Nelly Mriku, Director of Research at Ghana's Ministry of Finance, described the meeting as a key step towards finalizing the legal and institutional framework required to make the council operational. She added that strengthening participatory governance would further enhance regional cooperation and deepen integration among ECOWAS member states. For WADR, Nadidi Teti, Accra.
Crossing to the Sahel, the European Parliament has adopted a new resolution which calls for the release of deposed Nigerian President Mohamed Bazoum. The decision was reached during a session held in Strasbourg, France. Since that report emerged, citizens of Niger have been reacting. More edit reports.
The European Union Parliament on Thursday, March 12, considered a new resolution on what it describes as the arbitrary detention of Niger's President Mohamed Bazoum. The joint resolution calls for the immediate release of President Bazoum, who has been held by the current authorities in Niger since the July 2023 coup d'etat. However, Abdul Wahid Mukaila described the move as a non-event, citing the position maintained by the authorities currently in power in Niger. Similarly, Rabi Musa Mahamadou said the European Parliament should focus on matters within its own jurisdiction.
I think the military authorities have made their position clear. Issues relating to justice and Niger's national interest concern only Nigerians and should be handled internally. We should not expect outside intervention or pressure to dictate what should be done.
Debates in the European Parliament began on the evening of Wednesday, March 11, in Strasbourg, addressing human rights violations in Niger, alongside situations in Russia and Georgia. A supporter of President Bazoum, who requested anonymity, said Niger was being governed by authorities who showed little regard for the rule of law and that the justice system had effectively collapsed. The G25 Niger group, through Tahiru Garaka, also expressed doubt that the National Council for the Safeguard of the Homeland, CNSP, would respond positively to the European Parliament's request.
La junta a toujours ignoré ce genre d'appel. The junta has consistently ignored such calls. For instance, the ECOWAS Court of Justice ordered the release of President Mohamed Bazoum, but the ruling has never been implemented.
European lawmakers said the resolution aims to condemn the detention of Mohamed Bazoum and his family while calling for the restoration of constitutional order in Niger. They also recalled that the European Parliament adopted a similar resolution nearly 2 years ago, almost unanimously condemning what it described as Bazoum's illegal detention.
Niamey correspondent Yakubu Habibullah's report voiced by Imo Edet. While staying in Niger, the government has condemned the European Parliament resolution calling for the release of former President Mohamed Bazoum. On Thursday, Foreign Minister Bakariao Sangare summoned the EU Charge d'Affaires in Niger, Nicoletta Avella, to formally protest the move. Authorities in Niger condemned what they described as EU interference in the country's internal affairs and rejected what they call a paternalistic attitude. The resolution adopted by the European Parliament in Strasbourg called for the release of Bazoum, who has been in detention with his wife since July 2023 coup.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
In Senegal, one soldier has been killed and 6 others injured during a clash in the south of the country. According to the information de la Relation Publique des Armées, the incident happened when troops conducting an operation to destroy cannabis fields encountered a group of armed individuals. The clash occurred on Thursday morning in Kajolat, near the border with the Gambia. The army says several attackers were neutralized and operations are continuing in the area to combat illegal cannabis cultivation, pursue armed groups, and protect local communities. Still in Senegal, Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko says the government will move ahead with plans to renegotiate contracts in the telecommunications, water and mining sectors. Speaking to the press, Sonko said a government review of the agreements signed by previous administration uncovered serious irregularities and significant financial losses for the state. He added that the findings have prompted authorities to begin renegotiating several key contracts. Christopher Atichi reports.
The Senegalese Prime Minister's presentation focused on what he described as problematic sectors. Ousmane Sonko said a committee had examined several contracts and agreements that were rushed through by the country's former leaders. According to the Prime Minister, this resulted in an estimated loss of 1,075 billion CFA francs in the mining sector. He said the renegotiation of contracts will first target the mining sector.
What we now want in this sector is to regain control of all the assets. Currently, we do not supply enough fertilizer for our agriculture, both in quantity and quality. Our ambition is to become the leading supplier in the sub-regional market, exporting more than 3 million tons of fertilizer annually.
Sonko added that the committee also identified revenue losses linked to the non-payment of taxes and royalties by companies that signed contracts with the states. Regarding the Yaka-Tarenga gas project, the Prime Minister said operations are expected to resume in the coming weeks.
The discussions are being conducted in a consensual manner. We have adopted a very simple strategy. From now on, whether it concerns phosphate, gas or oil, we will no longer sign concessions with partners and then wait 25 years to review them. Instead, we will first develop a strategy based on our development priorities and domestic needs, and then identify partners who are willing to align with that strategy.
He further indicated that the contract for the Grand Tortue Amayem gas project will also be renegotiated. The offshore gas project, shared by Senegal and Mauritania, is expected to help meet the country's energy needs and generate about 1,900 billion CFA francs in revenue.
Christopher Atichu reporting. Talking humanitarian crisis, Nigeria's human displacement crisis following surging attacks and rising insecurity has reached an alarming level, says IOM. According to the International Organization for Migration, more than 3.7 people are displaced. In addition to insecurity, IOM cites related disasters, particularly flooding, as factors driving thousands of families from their homes. The UN agency is therefore urging stronger humanitarian coordination and long-term recovery efforts for the displaced persons. WDR's Yechenusa Seto has more.
The IOM Chief of Mission in Nigeria, Sharon Dimanche, disclosed this information while delivering a goodwill message at the first Edo State Humanitarian Summit in Benin City. She noted that the growing number reflects the impacts of conflict.
And these people are being displaced because of conflict, climate shocks, because of environmental-related issues, because they are looking for opportunities. Our priority is to ensure that vulnerable population, those who are displaced, they receive protection immediately.
The agency also emphasized the need for stronger collaboration between government, development partners, civil society, and the private sector to address the growing humanitarian challenge. Meanwhile, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Bernard Doro, says the federal government remains committed to strengthening support systems for displaced persons and building more resilient communities.
Practical steps to address the challenges confronting vulnerable populations in these states. This demonstrates a strong commitment to safeguarding vulnerable citizens and strengthening social resilience.
Humanitarian organizations say addressing internal displacement will require sustained investment in recovery, safe return, and community integration to help affected families rebuild their futures. For WADR, Yechenis Asitu in Abuja.
You're listening to Newslink on West Africa, the Macrass Radio 94.9 FM, Dakar online at wadr.org. Here is a reminder of our top stories. ECOWAS calls for restraint and peaceful resolution of border disputes between Mano River Basin. 1 soldier dies and 6 others injured during a clash between Senegalese army and MFDC rebels. IOM reveals over 3.7 million Nigerians displaced by conflict and climate disasters. And Liberian government vows a comprehensive national plan to address unemployment, especially among youth. Still ahead, we have guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
In Liberia, the Ministry of Labour has unveiled a strategic plan aimed at tackling rising unemployment, particularly among young people, while strengthening protections for workers across both the public and private sectors. Speaking in Monrovia, Labour Minister Cooper Crowe reaffirmed the government's commitment to enforcing the Decent Work Act of 2015, which outlines measures to improve labour standards and expand job opportunities for Liberians. WDR's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker reports.
Youth unemployment remains one of Liberia's most pressing challenges, with thousands of young people struggling to find stable employment. In response, the Ministry of Labour says it has introduced measures to prioritize local hiring, including increasing work permit fees for foreign workers from $1,000 to $3,000. Labour Minister Councillor Cooper Crowe says the policy has already led to a reduction in expatriate employment, with companies such as BA Monty reportedly cancelling more than 350 foreign worker permits to create opportunities for Liberian workers.
We will determine if the job is supposed to be done by a foreigner or Liberian. If we think Liberian can do the job, we'll not grant you that application. We thought that perhaps there's a need to look at the fees. What it has done is help us to reduce people they might consider non-essential.
On protecting workers' rights, Minister Crowe says the ministry's Labour Standards Division handled more than 300 cases of unfair labor practices in the past year, ensuring compensation for several employees who were wrongfully dismissed.
Accidents in workplaces have been one of the concerns of the government, so we needed to attack it through a program. There's a provision of the Decent Work Act that gives all the authority.
The ministry has also set up a special task force to investigate hiring practices in major concession areas where reports indicate that some workers are underpaid. Authorities say the initiative will help ensure fair wages and address labor violations to improve working conditions across the country. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
Let's bring you some news on politics on election preparedness. First, in Côte d'Ivoire, the leadership of the Democratic Party of Côte d'Ivoire, PDCI-RDA, is urging MPs who have suspended their participation in the party's parliamentary group to remain calm and show restraint. In a statement, the party also criticized unilateral actions by some lawmakers, saying they go against the party's principles. The appeal comes as Côte d'Ivoire's main opposition party prepares to mark the 80th anniversary of its founding amid growing internal tensions. In a statement issued by Nanwan Genevieve, executive secretary in charge of economic and social affairs, the party reminded members that the parliamentary group is an extension of PDCI-RDA and a key component of its political action.
Le PDCI-RDA tient à rappeler que le groupe parlementaire.
The PDCI-RDA wishes to recall that the parliamentary group is an extension of the party and a key component of its political action. As such, it has always operated and will continue to operate in accordance with the party statutes, as well as the principles of collegiality and collective discipline that underpin any structured political organization. The PDCI-RDA also confirms that the appointment of leaders of the parliamentary group and party members serving on the Bureau of National Assembly falls under the exclusive prerogative of the party president. In the current political context, marked by strong expectations from party members and the general public, the PDCI-RDA calls on all its elected officials and leaders to exercise restraint and remain loyal to the organization that supported their election. The party remains open to any initiative aimed at preserving unity and strengthening cohesion.
À toute démarche permettant de préserver l'unité et la cohésion.
Executive Secretary in charge of Economic and Social Affairs of the PDCI at the Nalwan Genevieve. In the Gambia, the National Council for Civic Education has launched dialogue sessions with political actors and community leaders to promote peaceful participation ahead of the 2026 presidential election. The initiative, supported by Catholic Relief Services through its whole project, aims to strengthen social cohesion and ease political tensions before the polls. The sessions, running from March 10 to 14, are expected to bring together about 550 influential participants across 5 regions of the country. From Banjul, WDR Sangdonal Mendy reports.
According to the National Council for Civic Education, these sessions will engage hundreds of influential voices across several regions of the country to encourage dialogue and tolerance among political actors and citizens. Organizers say the initiative is designed to create a platform where stakeholders can openly discuss political tensions, misinformation, and the growing use of abuse language in the political discourse. Speaking at the opening ceremony, NCCE Program Manager Ansumana Sise said dialogue among political actors and communities is critical to maintaining peace as the country prepares for the next presidential election.
We are here for a mission on national preservation. This project is part of NCC's strategic action to the futures of our society. It is designed to ensure that the smiling coast does not just smile for the cameras, but smiles because its soul is at peace and it is capable and people are united. As the 2026 electoral cycle draws near, the sovereignty of the Gambia resides in the Gambian people.
Meanwhile, Ijetu Jallo, the ward councillor for Basse Ward, Upper River Region, urged political actors and supporters to reject violence and practice tolerance during the electoral period. She emphasized that peaceful elections depend not only on institutions but also on the behavior of citizens and political players.
Peace for 2026 election. I'm urging each and everyone in this hall to use it at the Bantaba, WhatsApp groups, even at the mosques or any other religious places. Let us all share this information and the program so that we can have a peaceful election.
The dialogue sessions are expected to continue across the targeted regions in the coming days as part of efforts by the National Council for Civic Education and its partners to promote tolerance, peaceful political engagement and social cohesion ahead of the 2026 polls. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sangdana Mendy reporting from Banjul.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest interview focuses on Liberia, where the government has unveiled a new strategic plan to tackle rising unemployment, especially among young people. Authorities also say they will strengthen protection for workers in both public and private sectors while reinforcing the implementation of the Decent Work Act of 2015. Our guest is Cooper Croa, who speaks about the latest measures.
If you presented to us an application, we would determine if the job is supposed to be done by a foreigner or Liberian. If we think Liberian can do the job, we'll not grant you that application. There are also instances where we thought that perhaps there's a need to look at the fees. So we increased the fee from 1,000 to 3,000. What it has done is help us to reduce companies now, concessions, are sending out people they might consider non-essential employees to spend that kind of money on an annual basis. For example, Beer Mountain, after the introduction of the new rate, $3,000, they wrote we cancel about 357 work permit for expatriate staff. They have to send them back. AFCON have done the same thing. WBH has done the same thing. They sent back a number of workers, foreign workers, because they are now trying to listen to us that it's better for if you employ Liberians, their overhead costs will be cheaper, and so it will be your interest.
There's a thin line why you think it was happening that led to you instituting that measure.
Yeah, we thought that maybe because, number one, the fee was cheap. Okay. Because if you compare, at that time, you compare the 1,000 we're collecting. If you look at Ghana, Nigeria, in other African countries, and we noticed that they were paying almost 5,000. The associated costs. Maybe the work permit might be 1,500, but you need a lawyer to represent you to do that. You have to file bond. If you want a work permit, like in most of the francophone country, you have to file bond and things like that. So it was more as compared to what we're doing here. So with the adjustment, then people just thought that it's important to bring in more Liberian workers now.
People think that this issue about work permit is somehow, quote unquote, being given to foreigners. What can you say to Liberians who think that there is corruption within the issuance of a work permit to foreigners?
Well, I like to just say in a simple term that we will not anywhere in the ministry where we will notice anybody with any semblance of corruption in terms of the performance of their duty. We definitely will take action against it. Work permit, the reason we hike the price, we want to make sure that companies should now look to employ more Liberians. And we see them. Take, for example, Beer Mountain, end of 2024, the total Liberian workforce there was around 4,000 plus. When we instituted a new work, increase in the work permit, they canceled about 357 expatriate staff and sent them back.
Cooper Croa is Liberia's Minister of Labour. Well, in sports, we begin with basketball because African champions Nigeria's the Tigers suffered a 77-60 defeat to South Korea in their second game at the 2026 FIBA Women's Basketball World Cup qualifying tournament in Lyon, France. South Korea set the tone early with accurate long-range shootings, taking a 36-32 lead at halftime before extending their advantage in the second half. Well, despite a strong performance from Victoria Macaulay, who scored 22 points and grabbed 6 rebounds, Nigeria struggled offensively and managed just 9 points in the final quarter. The Tigers will now turn their attention to their next match against the Philippines as they look to bounce back in the qualifying tournament. In football, the Confederation of African Football, CAF, is set to review the ruling issued by its disciplinary committee over the controversial 2025 Africa Cup of Nations final between Morocco and Senegal. Reports say CAF's appeal committee has agreed to reopen the case and has asked the federation involved to submit fresh legal arguments to support its appeal. CAF has also launched a separate inquiry into some officiating decisions during the match, which sparked strong reactions from fans and football stakeholders. The matter is expected to be discussed at the committee's next meeting, where a final decision could be made on whether to uphold or overturn the earlier verdict. We've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Ismaila Kamara and Maudoju for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X, Instagram, and Facebook at WDR English. I am Sankule Jibril Janko. Good evening.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Nibe County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone in Nigeria, and Love 104.5 FM Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.